Anyway, why don't we get started and we can come back. Michael, I'm glad you're here. Is Betty okay?
Uh, yeah, I think so. She's just going through a rough time. She must have some sort of an allergy,
Oh,
and the big problem is trying to get a doctor now to see her. It's pushed until February, but she keeps bringing up all kinds of junk and it's I don't know what it is. The only
all
thing
right.
she needs the ear, nose, and throat doctor,
Has
and
she
so
been seen at urgent care?
no, she doesn't want to do that. She just
All
wants to
right.
go directly to a specialist.
I'm going to put in a good word for Fast Track only because they treated me well. And when I visited them this past summer, and it was excellent care. That's something you could think about.
What is
Wish you
that?
well for us.
What,
Excuse me.
what was that you said? Fast track?
That's it. And you
Well,
can they're near Green Valley Mall.
oh, Green Valley Mall.
Okay. So
Thank you.
you're welcome. You're welcome. Wish her well for us.
I will. Thank you very much. And the
You're
same to
welcome.
Susan.
You're welcome. I will start our opening prayer. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah.
Amen.
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 And just we have some people back with us. We have finished getting a whole list of
Did you want me to do
instructions.
the poetry reading first?
Oh, I'm sorry, David. Please, please.
Okay, the poem today is actually an old Welsh hymn that I used to sing when I was at summer camp. And I'd like to share that with you right now.
Sure.
Sleep, my child, and peace attend thee all through the night. Guardian angels, God will send thee all through the night. Soft the drowsy hours are keeping, hill and vale in slumber sleeping. I my loving vigil keeping all through the night, while the moon her watch is keeping all through the night, while the weary world is sleeping all through the night. Or their spirit gently stealing, visions of delight revealing, breathe all pure and holy feeling all through the night. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Well, we have spent about over a month going over the passages of Shemo, which are the words given by God to Moses, and a whole list of do's and don'ts, some of which God is writing feverishly down, but it's taking 40 days. We've been at this over 40 days. and last week we started a brief discussion on what have we learned about all of this, and what have we, and then we can dovetail it into what we are about to understand. Yes.
I don't know where you are. I've been gone for.
Oh, I'm sorry. We are basically about to start Exodus 32, verse 1.
You didn't get
It's
that
the golden
far.
calf story.
Okay.
But we have to understand we have to review a few things. What were the major elements that we started with on this endeavor? in receiving the words from God. The 10 commandments. And it, with that in mind, maybe we should review just briefly what they are. It's not going to be important to have them in order, except for maybe the first 2 or 3. Okay, because sometimes people do get them mixed up, and at our age, as long as we get it straight, that's okay. We have to have a little leeway there. But what is the first and most important commandment? Go ahead. Amy, please.
Thou shalt not worship any gods before me.
Well,
Actually,
it's a
it's a
variation
statement.
on, yes, that's
It
part
is a statement, Marty and everyone.
yes, that's right.
It's a statement is, I am the Lord thy God,
Yes,
brought thee out of the land of Egypt. It is not so much a commandment as it is a statement.
that's correct. And but Amy, part of that is what follows, and you are correct also. And so when we think of that, that's going to be important. What else do we have to follow? What rule do we have to follow that comes very close to this? What day do we have to take off?
Uh,
Shabbat.
Okay, and why?
God commanded it.
Okay, it's Shabbat.
Because
It's
God
Shabbat.
rested on that day.
That's right. But why is it so important? Is it just for us? Or is it for other people? We had this discussion too. What about visitors? What about people who are employed by you or your slaves? What about them?
Well, your
Important for
animals.
them too.
Your
We
animals
discussed
too.
that. And what else? You've had too much eggnog.
Well,
Yes, go ahead, Michael and Amy. Go ahead.
yeah, I personally know, for instance, in my Chabad rabbi in California, in Glendale, California, they are very religious. They're Chabad members and rabbi, but they hire people to take care of their family.
Oh, yes, we had that discussion. That's
But I
right.
don't.
That's
yeah,
right.
Yeah, I don't remember that discussion, and they
Yeah.
they turn off and on the lights, which they won't do. So they hire people to turn off. So that escapes me. I don't remember that conversation.
Okay, that's okay. But we've had that discussion too. But what about animals? Oh, yeah, well, Amy and then Don.
well, it's a day set aside to worship God,
Yes.
but it's also a day for everybody, your slaves, your animals, everyone gets a rest
Very
from
good.
their weekly toil.
Okay. So this is something that is important, and it's woven in and out of all of the discussions as we proceed through the rest of Shema. Okay? And that whole discussion there, it comes up over and over again. I believe, oh, Don, you shifted on my screen. Okay, please.
I didn't move. Well, underneath, the Sabbath day reflects the day that God rested from his creations. And that's what we're honoring. We're reflecting
Yes.
that day that God rested. And all the the legal maneuvering to try to find a way to get things done on the Sabbath violate that.
In essence, it does. It's a good point that you're making, that if you're asking someone to do it for you, is that making them responsible for things they're still doing work on that day. And so maybe you're violating the basic premise. Nobody who is in your employ or that comes to your home is going to be working. So it becomes difficult. It's an interesting topic that you bring up. What else? What else are in those 10 commandments? Anybody? Yes, okay. Don, I know you have your hand up, and Amy, but Grace hasn't had a turn. Let me call on her first.
Honor thy father and mother.
Very good. Very good. Go ahead, Amy and Don.
Well, that's the one I was going to say, but thou shalt not kill.
Oh, murder.
Murder.
That's the
I'm
word.
sorry.
That's right. Okay. And Don?
Well, these are a list of things that in the long period since God created the Hebrews, they had been unable to comply with. You know, these are all the things that in our guts we know we should honor, but in those 5,700 years ago, when things came into being, up until 1,500 years ago, which we're reading about now, so that's like, I don't know, 4,000 years, Hebrews had been unable to honor these basic things. And so now they're literally carved in stone. And this is kind of a relaunch to me, in my eyes. I mean, it's only my opinion, a relaunch of Judaism where God is saying, okay, I had enough of your stuff.
Okay, we're going to come back to what you said, because that's very important. Yes, Michael, what are some of the other basic commandments?
Well, one that's on my list, very high on the list, is thou shalt not steal.
Okay, very good. What else? Amy?
Thou shalt not commit adultery.
Very good. Anyone else? What about false witness? Thou shalt not bear false witness? Yes, Gail.
Marty, isn't it there really an umbrella commandment, which is how to treat other people? How to,
Yes, we can. Well, that's a summation of it.
Well, that's what I'm saying. So, I mean, you're doing pieces and, whatever, but.
Okay, but there's a reason why.
Oh, okay.
Okay, there's a reason why I'm going over this. This is all the people have gotten, okay, initially. And the Jewish people, the Israelites, what did they say? What did they say at that point? Yes, we will do them.
Mm-hmm.
You had all the, and then all the other variations. Yeah, we'll do all that. But now God has called up Moses and given him tons of more information. 40 days worth. Okay. Now, think about our memory. Okay. As we get older, we do forget things we can't help it. But children forget things, teenagers forget things, and adults, young adults, middle-aged adults also forget things. What is the average memory span? If I asked you, what did you have for breakfast last Saturday? How many, just by show of hands, how many of you can recall every single thing that was on that plate? Okay, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay. How about a month ago? You guys do it by rote. You have the same thing day in and day out.
Right.
Okay. So let me change it. Let me change the question. What did you do last Saturday afternoon? The same group, it's the same thing. You do the same things day in and day out.
No, I was watching the World
But
Cup. It was easy.
Did you? Okay. But what can you name the teams that were playing each day in the order in which they appeared?
I'd have to get out my chart.
You would have to get out your chart, but you need a helper. What
There were
about
22 teams, Marty? So
that's right. So, but what I'm trying to say is that people have different memory spans. People have different memory spans. Some have it longer than others. If we do this, that's why older people actually get into a routine, because they can remember that routine. But if they had a different breakfast served to them every day, I will venture you would all fall into the category of not knowing what you had several days out, item for item. Yes, Michael.
I think there are also certain dynamics involved. There's a something that triggers a memory, that particular memory in their mind, and the way I came about, the way I answering that your question is my profession of music. I can give you a very quick example. I was performing in California. A gentleman asked me for the song, and I remember the song, I Left My Heart in San Francisco. And I had not seen that gentleman for 10 years. He left the club and he came back 10 years because I was a long term in this particular venue. And so he came back 10 years later, and I remember his face. I cannot recollect his name for anything, but when I saw his face, I connected that with the song I Left My Heart in San Francisco. So see, what I'm trying to say is there are different dynamics involved. It's not clear cut.
That's right. That's right. But everyone, sooner or later, forgets. Why do you have to have certain rituals at certain times? To help you remember.
Yeah.
Because if you skip a few years, you're going to now change the prayer in your mind. You can't help it. The same thing happens in every profession. The same thing happens in any job you can think about. Okay? Even your daily routine. And then one day something happens and it changes it, and you won't remember if you did it or not. Yes, Gail.
Marty, is this why people don't like change? I noticed that particularly with older people. Any small change, boy, it just throws them for a curve, you know? They don't like
Yes, it does.
Well, you know, we used to do it this way and now we do it that way.
No, that's what happens as we get older. That's right. Yes, Don.
Well, memory is on a bell-shaped curve because there are so-called
Yes.
idiot savants who can literally remember every single moment of their life. It's staggering that human beings can have that capacity. But we know
That's right. You are very correct. You're very correct. Yes, Rabbi Mary.
Okay, Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
One of the things is, I don't know if Marty is leading exactly to that, but it seems to me, Marty, that you want people to remember the 10 Commandments. And
yes.
so in order to do that, there is a repetition of it that comes again. But when we say, and this is what we say in chapter 31, is, and they kept the Shabbat. What does it mean? They guarded the Shabbat, they kept the Shabbat. Basically, they did everything that you have to do on Shabbat or not to do on Shabbat. But in the next 10 commandments, they are exactly the same except one word. And the word is, and you remember the Shabbat. It doesn't say, and you kept the Shabbat or you guarded the Shabbat. It says, and you remember, Zachru. And guys, if all you sing on Shabbat, you say on Lecha Dodi, Sha'amor ve'zachor b'dibur echad, Yishmianu Shema meyuchad. There's remember and the kept, said word, said Adonai, said God. So he says both things, not just repeating, keep the Shabbat, but keep the Shabbat and remember the Shabbat. And it's a quite extraordinary way of looking at this. So the rabbi said, well, so which one is right, Shamor or Zachor? To remember or to keep? I mean, both of them. So the explanation, and we have this in the song, Shamor ve'zachor, keep and remember in one utterance. That's how they explain the difference in the two commandments, in the 10 commandments. They say, keep or remember. What shall I do? So I said, God said both words in one utterance. So Marty is absolutely right. It's not just remind you to keep, but also remember it.
Right.
Isn't that why we have 2 candles on Shabbat?
That's probably a tradition that might be that one. Absolutely
Interesting.
could have been.
Good question.
That's the reason to do it. Could
Yes,
be.
Michael. Thank you. That's very good, Rabbi Murray. And Gail, that was excellent.
I was thinking about something here, and I'm just going to take a little different position on the word importance. It seems to me that things that do not come up regularly create an importance in some people's minds. For example, Yom Kippur only comes once a year, one time a year. And so from my standpoint, as you would say, or my position, that seems to attach a very, very big importance because it doesn't happen all the time. Only one time a year where the Shabbat comes up every week.
Yes.
So it tends, I think, to lose some importance because it's so regular. It comes so regular, even though it's a very, very important position to take in Judaism, but it happens every week. And so, like I say, the Yom Kippur, wow, that's a big deal. Why? Because it's once a year. And of course, all the ritual attached to it. But that's why I attach importance. So how regular something comes up.
Okay, so if we do the same things, work with, whether it's work or we speak it repetitively, we will know exactly what we are doing day in and day out.
And one other thing I may
when
add.
something, just a minute, Michael.
Yeah.
When something comes along and distracts you, both children and senior adults have a tendency to become distracted more then the teenagers on up. So for them, everything has to slow down, and whether it's by rote or by repetition, the youth and the seniors need to always repeat things. When you repeat things as an adult and teach them then to your children, you are forming a closer bond with them. So that is one way in which the children will honor their parents. They will look forward to those events as family time. Okay, when it's the parent who sets the example, but it's the child who learns by what he or she sees. And so in that way, they will wind up honoring the parents and the grandparents, and it works out just fine. Yes, Don. And then I'll come back to you, Michael. Let Don say something, and then we'll come back to you.
What you just said, Marty, leads to an important point I think we overlook easily, and that is, what are the consequences of not remembering? And to me, that's the difference between maturity and immaturity, because if the consequences are few, then it's so easy not to remember. But the consequences can be either external forces, or they can come from inside us and say, I'm going to do this because I respect myself when I do it. It's
Good point.
huge. And I remember last time I was at Tucson Airport, there was a guy my age wearing a T-shirt that said, I've seen it all, I've done it all, I've heard it all. I just can't remember it all.
I love it. Love it. Yes, Michael, go ahead.
And speaking about now that go back to the Shabbat and keeping the Shabbat, and it's about work. Okay. The definition of work is, I can see that kind of on a very much a gray area in certain respects. Working in a bank as a teller or whatever, a fireman, and then something like just turning on a light switch. It's for me. It's a very difficult to decipher this. To be very clear about it. There's so many rules, especially, and when I speak really from an orthodox position, not so much a conservative, but orthodox. Very unclear, because some things that people will do, such as play music, is not work. It's just not work,
Okay.
So it creates a gray area for me.
And what you bring up is very important. Now, after we've had this, yes, okay, Helene first, yes.
I totally agree that play music is not work. Play music is fun. It is memorable. It is a joy, a pure joy. Sure. And it is never forgotten, because that's what I've done all my life with children and intergenerational, is sing, play songs, and they remember every word.
That's right. Yes, Gail.
I thought that
very good, Helene.
That the admonition about not working on Shabbat, at least I was taught when I was learning about Judaism, you aren't supposed to create anything on Shabbat. That is where the term work. So it's all right to open a door, but you don't want to build a doorknob, okay? So you could play music, that would be fine. But if you're creating music, well, like, composing, that's a whole different area. So that was what I was taught. You're not supposed to create anything on Shabbat.
Well, that takes into, then it leaves out artists, it leaves out writers who are poets, and so there are a lot of these fine lines that have come up. Now, what I want to do is that, I'm sorry, Rabbi Mary.
Marty, just one thing about the issue of working on Shabbat. It says the word in Hebrew is, you are not going to do any work. We have in English, I think, do you have a synonym for the word work? I don't know. You shall not do any work. Some rabbis said what they intended is, you cannot do any work that was done building the tent of meeting or the temple. That's the number of things that you cannot be doing. Now, another thing, Michael, that the Orthodox still do and did, and they did it in all areas, it's called Siag La Torah. They said, let's make the limits really wide. You know why? The wider it is, the less chance is that you're going to break the law. So if I make music and I said, no, music also, I'm enlarging that without relating to what music does, as Helen was saying. So they do that kind of behavior in which I want to make sure that I keep the law. So I'm going to make the things forbidden as large as I can. Now, with the music thing is that, let's say that you play the piano and then all of this, the violin is easier. You play the violin and one of the strings breaks. So now you have to take it to be fixed, and fixing is not allowed. Okay, when I work with the group on temple Bet Shaloms in Europe temple, what I mentioned, and as a rabbi of 2022, my thing is Elaine posted, is this brings joy, which is a commune with whatever God you have. It's, as Gail said, the issue of creation. If when you work in your garden, you feel that you are in ecstasy, that you don't think about anything, that you are communing with God, just do it. Just do it. And I'm going to do my art because that's what it does to me. And you're going to do your music because that's what it does to you. So it's a very difficult thing for certain people. They don't allow to carry an umbrella to the shul. Give me a break. It's pouring and you are not allowed to bring an umbrella because it creates a roof. Or you are not allowed to push the pram of your baby.
Yeah.
It's a very, very narrow way of thinking about what makes you that joy that brings you to be with the bless him, her, they, gods.
Very well stated, Rabbi. Yes, Don.
If I may, I'd like to ask Michael a question. So, Michael, it's this Shabbat, in the afternoon, and suddenly this musical melody pops into your head that you've never heard before. And it's it's in a minor key, and there's a diminished ninth note in it that you've never heard. And would you rush to the piano to tap it out, or would you let it go till the next day?
I would give it, if it depends how compelling that
That's what
people.
I'm asking.
That's it.
I'm gonna take it from this position, Don. The melody that comes into my head is very compelling, and I'm absolutely overwhelmed with it. I'm going to get on the piano, and I'm going to work it out.
Okay.
I'm not going to let it slip. I'm not going to let it slip by.
Okay, I'd like to bring things back to what we're going over, because I don't want it to drift into different ways that we can change things. But I do want to say, what do you think the people were talking about when Moses is gone now 40 days? Do you think they may have been talking about these things the way we are now? Possibly. And if so, there are going to be some questions being raised in their minds. And what's happening to this fellow that he's disappeared for 40 days? You know, did he take a shower? Did he cut his fingernails during that time? Did he, what do we do? He's not here to guide us. Our fearless leader is absent. And what happens when there's no, it doesn't matter. Let's say your parents just disappeared for a month. How would you feel? You'd be, as the crossword puzzles put it, a C. Okay? You'd be, my God, what's going on here? And so you start wondering what's going on. You have to put your mindset in what's happening among the people. It just doesn't happen one day that they're getting a little antsy.
Well,
okay.
I think you would feel several things.
Yeah, but Gail has had her hand up, Michael. Just a second.
This is kind of, I'm sorry, but all I can think of is the movie Home Alone when you brought that.
Yes, yes, and you may even forget about all the rules and regulations and everything. Go ahead, Michael.
You would feel like several feelings: distraught, feel vulnerable,
Sure,
unsafe,
Abandoned.
abandoned. Thank you, and those.
That's right.
Many other.
That's right, Michael. Very good, very well stated. So now that we understand how the people might have felt, we can now start reading, okay, what is in the scripture. Because it's important to understand that a good amount of time has passed. All right? So if somebody, whoever has a copy of the literature, I know David always brings his. David, why don't you get us started reading reading verse 1, only verse 1.
On chapter 32.
Yes.
And when the people saw that Moses delayed to come down from the mount, the people gathered themselves together under Aaron and said unto him, Up, make us a God who shall go before us. For as for this Moses, the man that brought us up out of the land of Egypt, we know not what has become of him.
Okay, so now I think we can have a little better understanding of what the people were feeling, okay, during this time period. Yes, Gail.
A question, I'm sorry. Did Moses say that he was going to be gone for a certain amount of time, or did he just I don't remember. It's been a while since I've been in
It
class.
does not say, it's not mentioned how long this is going to take.
Sure.
That's right.
No explanation. Oh,
So now, has he abandoned us? Did he die up there? We don't know. We don't know what's going on. And so while Moses was receiving a month's worth of further instruction, okay, and God's writing down the 10 Commandments on tablets and everything. And the old jokes, take these 2 tablets and call me in the morning. This is the first prescription. But from the standpoint of the people, they're getting confused. Are they going to accept all of this on faith alone? There's been no demonstration of anything. There's been no ritual gathering except what they remembered to do for the Sabbath and a few other things. Yes, Don.
Yeah, Marty, I find this a little confusing because it wasn't, it's only a matter of weeks before the people witnessed the presence of God and all his power. And so it's not as if Moses is absent without leave to them, but have they abandoned we're back to memory. Have they forgotten what they just saw?
Did they forget what they said? That yes, they will do this. Yes, please,
Ruthann, you forgot who I was already.
I'm just gimish
Okay.
today.
No,
Go
I'm
ahead.
just wondering, they just came from Egypt. Egypt had multiple gods. Some of their gods stayed, some of their gods left, something bad happened. Did the god of whatever, go on sabbatical? The Hebrews there might have thought the same thing. That was the experience they saw of these other gods. Moses
Very
went up
good.
there. Did God go someplace else and forget about them?
So now what do you think they're going to do? Let's read on and David will tell us.
Okay. And Aaron said unto them, break off the golden rings, which are in the ears of your wives, of your sons, and of your daughters, and bring them unto me. And all the people broke off the golden rings which were in their ears, and brought them unto Aaron. And he received it at their hand, and fashioned it with a graving tool, and made it into a molten calf. And they said, this is thy God, O Israel, which brought us out of the land of Egypt. And when Aaron saw this, he built an altar before it. And Aaron made proclamation. And he said, tomorrow shall be a feast unto the Lord.
Okay, let's stop at that point. Okay, so obviously the people were getting restless enough that he had to do something. Okay, this is the route he took. What other options could he have taken?
Hey, guys, you work 40 years. What's another 40 days? Just wait. He's coming. Be patient. But they saw Moshe as a god. It's not, I think the Don said, I think the Don said that they took already God. They did not believe in God. There was no notion of an abstract God.
Right.
Only Moshe was there telling stuff and making the miracles. They didn't think that the manna came from God. Moshe asked for it and he did it and it came. He was just like another statue that you pray to. They were still stuck in very concrete God.
That's right. What the word that's missing in this is faith. Okay, they had not developed a sense of faith that Moses would be back. This is another reason why faith is all entwined with another word, hope. And at some later points, we can go into the discussion as we talk about different events that are mentioned that revolve around faith and hope. Okay, but I wanted to point that out here, is that they had not totally understood, as Rabbi Mary points out, they did not understand the concept of faith and hope and putting that together because it's an immaterial concept. It is, there's nothing they came as, and it was very correct in what was said. They came from a world where everything could be touched. You could hold an idol in your hand. Okay. I don't know if anyone has seen those at the museums. Okay, that they would have these effigies in their homes for the different things that they needed, and they would pray to each one of the gods at that time. But they had something tangible that represented the god. So now, what other pathways could Aaron have taken? Okay, yes, Amy.
He could have asked God to send a sign that he was with them, some form of affirmation.
Yes, very good. What else?
Amy, do you remember that the only person that talked to God was Moshe?
And Moses
Aaron
was
did
on the
not
mountain.
talk to God.
Yeah.
That's right. And so it becomes, but he does have that option as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
He does, because
it's an option.
he doesn't truly have the faith.
Right.
That's the point I want to get across here.
Yeah.
And he hasn't, he's just taken direction through Moses. He has not been on his own in this whole situation. You can't just bring that leadership on someone. Because they have to keep an open mind. Okay, so now he's going, is there another path he could have taken? Yes, okay, Gail, and then Grace.
As you know, I think Aaron is probably one of those characters that I really don't understand all about. He's a very interesting person. But
exactly.
What was his real intent on gathering this gold? Does he mean things to go downhill? Because he shouts, he says something about, tomorrow we're going to worship God, a festival to God tomorrow. So was his intent to do something bad, or did he just lose control? Or I'm not real clear about this.
Well, what do you? Gail raises an interesting question. Grace, if it's okay, can we discuss that question first? Unless you.
Yes. Go ahead. I've got a rowdy puppy I need to care for
okay.
too. So
Okay.
I'll be right back.
So, Gail, do you want to expand on what you just said?
It's a question. I don't know what. I don't.
Well,
really
do you have any possible answers that you have thought about?
I'm not sure he really understood what the consequences could have been, but I don't know. He's a mysterious figure to me.
He is. That's why we're getting into this discussion. To try to shed a little light on the person who's out there. That's why we opened with the people. Now we're talking about Aaron. When he says what and he tells the people to get the earrings, the gold earrings, and let's, do the following things. What is he doing? He's making a
Buying
big,
time. It's buying time.
that's what I have heard in the past. When I reread this, I get the impression that he's saying, well, if Moses isn't here, maybe I have to assume complete control over this mass of people myself. I'm now in charge. And this is what we are going to need to do to keep the people quiet,
But then he loses
to appease
control.
them.
So then you're saying he loses control.
Why?
Well, I don't know why.
He does. He does
Why?
lose control. But
Right.
why? It's in his words. He says, come make us a God who shall go before us. Okay,
no.
that's what the people say.
The
So
people
Aaron
say,
says, take off the gold rings that are in your ears, your wife, and bring them to
me and blah, blah, blah. But then the
Okay.
people said, these are your gods. He didn't say that.
That's right. But the people say it, but he says, bring them to me. It's not a communal we. Okay. You see what's going here? That we have been privileged before agreeing. It's not just for Moses, it's for the people. And we all came to an agreement on that over 2 months ago. Okay. So if that's the case, Moses has spent the time trying to think in terms of community. God is thinking in terms of community. What is Aaron changing here? Okay, first Ruth Ann and then Grace.
Okay. I'm just thinking, do you think Aaron may have thought that the people would have balked at bringing the gold and wouldn't have done it?
Possible. Whenever we don't know that we're filling, this is midrash. We are filling in a huge empty space here. Okay, so it's a good possibility. Yes, Grace.
Okay, the one of the questions that I was having prior to this point in our discussion and reading was, what was Aaron's motive, right? I would believe that all these, the community is in an upheaval, right? And he's trying to kind of, perhaps maybe he's trying to calm the waves a little bit and give them something different to focus on than the loss of their leader Moses. And also that mob mentality has got to be striking to Aaron. He's confused. He's not sure. He doesn't know the answer that the people are looking for. It's just utter chaos like he's never seen before. So perhaps he's in fear. Perhaps he's just trying to calm the crowd and have them focus on something different other than the loss of what Moses is doing for them, because he's in question of that too. And whether or not he loses his faith and hope, I would doubt that very seriously. But I wasn't there. I don't know. I'm just thinking that, he's felt the hand of God as much as Moses at this point. So, I like the idea that we're opening this up, and having that broader sense of trying to fill in some gaps. And there, yes, of course, there's midrash, but that's just my 2 cents. I'm probably way off cue, but anyway,
No.
I got a puppy going crazy and he doesn't want to come down.
That's okay. That's okay.
Thank you.
That's good. That's a good point, Grace. Yes, Don.
Well, following a bit on Grace's point, it seems to be what we have here is an issue of authority. And Moses had the charisma, and also the people did recently witness God issuing the commandments to Moses. That it wasn't as if Moses was in a closet. But now, the cat's away, so the mice will play. And it seems, as in most mobs, unless things have changed, there's always a few rabble-rousers who come up out of the mob and get things stirred up. And, in this case, in this verse, the mob is treated as one big mass. But we have to believe that they were individuals who got it all going, and who were confronting Aaron, who didn't have the charisma that Moses had. So now there's kind of a push you, pull me situation here that Aaron simply can't deal with.
Isn't it well, go ahead. Go ahead. Yes, Rabbi Mary. Excellent, Don.
Okay. What is the relationship between Aaron and Moshe? I'm asking the group.
Excellent
Is there a
question.
connection there? Is there a connection between them?
Aren't they brothers?
Is there
Yeah.
any connection between Moshe and Aaron?
Yeah, they're brothers.
The what?
Brothers?
Yes, they are brothers. And Aaron at one point says, we are brothers, and actually I'm the oldest. So why do you think that you are something, Moshe? Why not me? That's midrash.
Yes.
That issue of being kind of annoyed and jealous of Moshe is a thing. Now, why did they go to Aaron? Why didn't they go to John Smith? Why did they go to Aaron?
Aaron's the high priest. Appointed.
No, not yet. No,
He was a high priest, exactly.
He's
He
not
was
the
a
high priest
he's not
yet.
the high priest.
Not yet.
Yeah, and and he is the brother of Moshe. If not Moshe, we'll take another brother. What's the difference? So they go to him. And as you guys said, personally, let's think. As Gail said, he's a very something. He appears also when Moshe goes to the burning bush. And what does it tell God that he cannot do? He cannot go to the people and do.
He can't speak well.
He cannot speak well. So what does God tell him? Okay, fine. You need a translator. Take Aaron with you.
Mhm.
So here, the role of Aaron is minimal. You don't think that he gets kind of upset about it? I'm the oldest, and this preacher is going to tell me what to say, and then I'll say it. I'm only a translator. So there is a relationship of not really. On the other hand, for the people, a brother is as well as the other one, and they go to him. Yeah, he could have done different things, but
Sure.
he didn't.
But
Okay. Yes, Gail.
my question is, what was his motivation for gathering the gold? I mean, did he have something? He was going to make
In
something.
mind.
Well, okay.
Right.
But did he really need it to become, some idol, or did he have something else in mind? I don't know. I'm just not clear on this.
Well, we have to fill all these in with midrash, with so you have to, as Rabbi Miri is saying, you can see how all these questions have to come up, but there's something in his character that we have to start thinking about. Okay, because this is the same issue is going to come up several more times as we go through the reading of what Aaron does along the way. Okay? then it'll come up in I think Leviticus. Yes. Not, excuse me, in Deuteronomy. Yes. Go ahead, Amy.
Is it possible he was trying to compete with his brother for leadership?
Well, it could be. It could be. Anyone who's grown up in a family with siblings, there may be someone. Doesn't happen in all families, but it does happen in some families where one person will vie against the other for leadership of the brothers and sisters.
And I know you don't like us to jump ahead, but he was made high priest. How
Yes.
bad was his sin have been? What happened? And he still became high priest, which
Yes,
is.
but there'll be things that befall him
No, I
because
understand
he's
that.
forgetting
Well,
things.
that's another mystery.
And so, I just want to point out that we'll go through this story a little more, but any other questions or comments about what Aaron is saying and doing at this point? So what, David, if you would please read verses 5 and 6.
Sure. Here comes verses 5 and 6. Before I start to read that, I do have a point that I'd like to make. I understand the idea of sibling rivalry, but I don't think that's I don't think that's it. I think that the people are going to Aaron because he's Moses' brother, and Aaron knows that.
Mm-hmm.
And Aaron's trying to keep the people from rioting, and he goes along with this. But I don't think his heart is in it. But I don't think this is a question of sibling rivalry. But anyway, let me go on to the next one. 5 and
It's
6.
a good point, David. Very good point.
Thank you. And when Aaron saw this, he built an altar before it. And Aaron made proclamation and said, "Tomorrow shall be a feast unto the Lord." And they rose up early on the morrow and offered burnt offerings and brought peace offerings. And the people sat down to eat and to drink and rose up to make merry.
Any comments about this?
The last word of 6, can you please read other translations?
The
last word.
Revel.
I have, and then rose to dance.
To dance. What
And
else?
I have revel. They got up to revel, revel.
Yes.
Okay. Well,
What is the
word
Hebrew
in
word?
Hebrew? The word in Hebrew is the root of the name Yitzhak, Isaac. That he was called Yitzhak because Abraham and Sarah laughed when these people said, "You're going to have a son." So it's laugh, but also the meaning is also to play and also to have sex.
Fascinating.
So, yeah. So what they were doing that was basically kind of an orgy that we need to understand that was the behavior that they did.
Okay. That's an excellent point. I'm glad that you're seeing certain things already in certain behaviors, because I was going to go back to 2 stories in Genesis. So far, Rabbi Miri is doing one. I have one more in mind. Okay. So any other comments, any between verses 1 through 6 before we read on? Okay. So this is what's going on back at the fort. Okay, well, whoever, that someone has that extra device on. And so now we go back. The story is going to shift back to what's going on at the top of the mountain. Okay? The people can't see it. It's all shrouded in clouds now. Okay. David or someone else, if they want to read, if you would just read verse
7.
Verse 7. Yes, thank you.
And the
7
Lord
through 8.
spoke unto Moses, Go get thee down, for thy people that thou broughtest up out of the land of Egypt have dealt corruptly. They have turned aside quickly out of the way which I have commanded them, and they have made them a molten calf, and have worshipped it, and have sacrificed unto it. And they have said, This is thy God, O Israel, which brought thee up out of the land of Egypt.
Okay. Any comments about that?
Well, he doesn't say Moses made him do it, or Aaron made him do it. They said the people did.
The people did it, yes.
It doesn't say your brother, just blew it.
That's why I wanted to spend more time on Aaron, because the story, because of this play, how it's worded, and it becomes very important. God is looking at the entire picture, not the individual here, or he's not conveying the individual pieces of the event to Moses. He is telling it's the whole scope, the whole group of them are behaving poorly. So any other comments about this?
Well, there is a word here that's important. In the Ten Commandments, after the I'm your God, and you shall not make any gods other than me, and you shall not make statues or paintings and bow to them. Now, with the calf, it's not just making the calf. What they do is, to the calf, they started worshiping it. They converted it in another god that they worship. And that's the no-no in the Ten Commandments.
That's right.
It's not that you do a sculpture. It's not that you do a painting. It's that you do them and bow to them, meaning that you convert them into a god.
Exactly.
And when I told you before, I'm the only God. So what are you doing?
That's right. And it's a different. In a way, I have to be sympathetic, because these people did not know anything better for all of their lives to this point. But
Yes.
they had agreed to what God was offering them already. And they're now casting it aside, defaulting back to what they grew up with. Okay? Because I keep saying that they agreed to follow everything because it's stated in Torah. Yes, go ahead, Ruth Ann. Ruth Ann, you're muted.
They agreed to follow, but they didn't know at that point what they were agreeing to follow. So
They were very hasty.
So at this point, like you said, they reverted back to what the only thing they knew, because as far as they knew, that might have been what they had agreed to.
So you have to now see, it becomes a very important consideration here. Let's say you're the parent, and your kid says to you, you're trying to say, this is what you should do. Yep, I'll do it. And then the kid doesn't do what you have said. Okay. how do you handle it? There are some people who lose their cool and yell and scream and everything. And others say, well, let's talk about it and see, because I really didn't show you what you had to do. I didn't demonstrate crossing the street and looking both ways and waiting. Okay. There was by the way, there was what popped into my mind before I forget it. There was a comment on, it was in on the internet and the news and like that. There was a runaway car in a parking lot, and they suddenly somebody looked in the cab of the truck. It was a truck, and there's a dog sitting up there with its paws on the wheel, and it's crashed in and everything. And how the dog got it into gear and like that, nobody really knows. Maybe it was by accident, but the dog saw a ritual being done. How you get into the car, where you sit, where you put your hands, where the dog's going to put the paws. Doesn't know any better, because hasn't been instructed. The complete set of instructions has not been given. Okay. And some of those the dog cannot understand. Okay. So, but is the dog responsible? Or see, I'm getting a comment from one of your dogs, Grace. or is it the fellow who left the dog unattended and maybe forgot to put the handbrake on, or things, a whole bunch of other things? Okay, you can see where this is going with that example. Okay, so now, if we think about all of that, yes, Grace, I think you wanted to say something before I said.
Thank you. Well, I've got to give you a dog story. We used to have this 35-foot motorhome, and we travel from Michigan to California and back again, and we finally ended up in Arizona. But I had an American Bulldog, and we're in a gas station filling up the tank one afternoon, and he comes, the dog, I'm getting snacks, husband is filling the tanks, and we look, and there's the American Bulldog sitting in the driver's seat, looking out over the dashboard and into the traffic, and some other person getting gas, he says, does that dog have its license? And then that's when we took notice of the dog sitting there looking like he's getting ready to drive the vehicle. It was hysterical, but I'd never heard the story that you just spoke of, but I imagine that it's something that they see, because I know dog training. And if they see us digging in the yard, guess what? Your dog's going to dig in your yard.
Sure.
Right? They see us open a door a specific way, they're going to open the door too.
Exactly.
So it's just one of, it's what they see. And when disciplining children for something that they should have done that didn't do, my thought is always, what did I do wrong to allow this to happen as the guiding person? And it's like, all right, let's sit down, let's talk about this. Can you tell me what I should have done different? So if they're old enough to understand, then, you take into consideration, well, what could I do differently? So that's all. Thank you.
Good points. Very good points. Yes, Amy.
Well, we were talking about the creation of the golden calf, and I personally feel that even today we take a lot of comfort in our religious symbols. Many people wear the Mogen David.
Mm-hmm.
Catholics have a crucifix. The Protestants have a cross. It's very comforting. They're very proud. to display their faith. And I think today that we still hold on to some tangible recognition of the God we worship.
Okay, it's a good point. It's a very good point. But it's a recognition, but we don't pray to those. As
Some
Rabbi Mary
Catholics-
said. As Rabbi Mary said. That's all. It's a very, these are very important discussions for us to understand. Remember, when you're going through different types of midrash, everything is correct. Okay? It's just another thing to think about. That's all. So any other comments? You're making all of you are making excellent comments on this. Okay. So as David said, God knows what's going on down there. Okay. He has seen this already. And as Rabbi Mary pointed out, the story about Sarah laughing and how Isaac comes about is very important, because God says, I did see you laugh. I did hear you laugh. Okay. And so it's just a very interesting way of putting things. Well, let's see. So God has already seen that the people have basically turned their backs on everything. They have come up with their own way of doing things. And even Aaron is complicit in breaking the law. So the whole bunch of them are running into are creating a situation that has the potential of not turning out so well for the people. Any other comments?
Marty,
Yes.
could having Moses go up the mountain be God's way of testing the people?
Very good.
I'm going to take away.
Very good. That's
this.
where that was the next question I was coming to.
But
Excellent.
my problem is this. Why is he so really angry? He wants to destroy them. It's like, okay, I gave you one chance and you didn't take it, and that's it.
Well,
It seems a bit.
It is, but is this also a test for Moses? Okay, Aaron has failed the test. Okay, yes, Ruth Ann.
yeah, I was just saying, well, God, I mean, has said or will say that it's a jealous God. People that are, when you're jealous, you don't always think, you just sometimes just react. So that could be what God was doing, just reacting, who knows?
Mm-hmm.
But also you kind of wonder, why did God let it go as long as it did? Why, when he started seeing the people were getting antsy, why didn't he send Moses back at that point? Why did he wait for the whole thing to happen?
Well,
I mean, it wouldn't make
I
as
could
nice of a
say
story,
maybe,
but
I could come up with a reason, but I don't know if that was the case. Nobody,
exactly.
But maybe people had to see that their choice was wrong, that it has consequences. You do have a freedom of choice. That's what we were getting. What other options could Aaron have taken? Okay. Even if they're limited options, you still have another option that you can try. It doesn't have to be one way only, because we do have that freedom of choice. And maybe that's one of the reasons why this story is here as well, that you have freedom of choice, but you have to put limits, self-limits or community limits on that choice. And that's a repetitive statement that's not mentioned, but does come up over and over and over again with each one of the subsequent stories. Okay, so I don't know. I don't know if that's another reason why. But it is interesting to discuss. That's all you can say.
Let's continue reading and let's see a parallel of that in Genesis.
Yes, it's very important. There are several different parts in Genesis that dovetail into this. Okay, so David, would you read verses
11.
9
and 9 through 10, and then we'll move slowly. But go ahead, because we're getting into the action here.
Okay, and the Lord said unto Moses, I have seen this people, and behold, it is a stiff-necked people. Now therefore let me alone, that my wrath may wax hot against them, and that I may consume them, and that I will make of thee a great nation.
Okay. Any comments about that?
Marty,
Yes, Amy.
if you're going to consume the people, how can you make them a great nation?
No, look again, Amy. Who is going to make a great nation do?
Oh, Moses.
Yes.
That's
Okay,
that.
so
Yeah.
there's an escape
Everyone
route.
is.
That's right. There's an escape route. Yes, Don.
Yeah, there's a parallel because now we have Moses negotiating with God coming up, and we saw that back in Genesis, in Sodom and Gomorrah, when
Yes. Yeah.
God
Abraham.
came on hard and then had to be negotiated down with Abraham.
Yeah.
Yes, this is what we're about to read. Yes, this is what Rabbi Miri and Don are spelling. So why don't we go ahead and go through verses 11 through 14.
Okay. Okay, and Moses besought the Lord his God and said, Lord, why doth thy wrath wax hot against thy people, that thou hast brought forth out of the land of Egypt with great power and with a mighty hand, Wherefore should the Egyptians speak, saying, for evil did he bring them forth, to slay them in the mountains, and to consume them from the face of the earth? Turn from thy fierce wrath, and repent of this evil against thy people. Remember Abraham, Isaac, and Israel, thy servants, to whom thou didst swear by thine own self, and said unto them, I will multiply your seed as the stars of heaven, and all this land that I have spoken of will I give unto your seed, and they shall inherit it forever. And the Lord repented of the evil which he said he would do unto his people.
Very good. So, Don already said it and seconded it by Rabbi Miri. It is reminiscent of that.
Yeah, I have a question to the group. Plus, again, look in your Torahs, the first word of verse 14. What's the word you have?
Verse 14.
Yeah, the first word.
And.
Remember.
Oh, wait a minute, yeah, remember?
Verse 14, the
Go ahead,
first word. Do you
Okay.
have remember?
No, there's nothing like that.
Hashim.
It says, and the Lord renounced the punishment he had planned to bring upon his people.
Renounced.
Yes.
That anyone has something different.
Reconsidered.
Relented.
Relented, reconciled. What do you have, John?
Repented.
Okay. Now the word is not either of those that you talked about. The word is vaynachem, and nechama is, for example, if you lose a father, a mother, a child, someone close to you, I'm coming to you and I'm menachem. And there is a name of someone, menachem. I menachem you. I make you feel good. I relax you. I try to be nice to you. So that's what's happening to God. He got calm. He got nechama. He got, okay, fine. I'm cool now because he was very angry. I'm softer now. So that's the word nechama. So that's what happened to God, which is very interesting. All the feelings that God shows, he's angry, but now, okay, fine. I feel a little better now. So that's what he says to Moshe.
Became sympathetic.
Sympathetic, you can say that. It's not exactly, but it's about him or her or they. It's about the God itself talks about itself and says, okay, I feel calm. I feel fine. I feel repented. Not exactly, but that's now God says that this people is Am Kshe Oref, and it's translated stiff neck. What does it mean, stiff neck?
Stubborn.
It's one.
Who said
Stubborn.
something?
That's one. Yes.
Stubborn. Stubborn. So the word is stubborn, and today we use that also, akshan, stubborn. And that's what the people is, because stiff neck doesn't mean much. Well, but it was a metaphor of something.
Yeah.
But it is today, it's akshan is stubborn. And that's what God called the people. You're stubborn, guys.
Okay. Incidentally, well, any other comments first? Well, what about what's very important here? We said it also when we spoke about Abraham in the story of Sodom and Gomorrah. What is Moses doing? First of all, this fellow who couldn't speak very well, obviously does have it within him that he can speak and get his thoughts in order. Okay, he's a lot stronger than what he initially thought of himself. Yes, Amy.
He's bargaining with God.
Yes. Yes. And it's not just saying there's no mention of himself in this. He's doing this on behalf of the people. I mean, he's really taking this to heart. He's not just saying it casually, okay? And so that that he understands his role. He knows very much what his role is in this whole thing. And he doesn't want to see this be torn asunder because God is going to spare him. In the as we read it in verse 10. So Moses here is saying, okay, don't spare these people. You know, they still have a lot to learn. But also, remember, God, how are you going to be thought of by other people? That's pretty brazen. Would you have enough guts to say that to your parents or your teachers? Well, maybe today they do, but we would never have said anything like that. Yes, Don.
Yeah, it was almost easy for me to skip over when Moses reminds God that God made an oath
Yes.
to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and that he needs to fulfill that oath. But that also, with that oath, it kind of touches on this sensitive thought I have about giving the land to the people, but he doesn't say, I'm going to take the land from the other people and give it to you. Well, we're going to find that out. But he says, I'm just going to give it to you. But anyway, it's an oath he made, and Moses calls his attention to that.
Okay. This is a very important point. It's a very important point that's that we're discussing here. We have to shift gears for a second and shift to another religion that has reinterpreted everything here. Okay? They still say Moses was a prophet, but the Islamic religion says, wait a minute, what about us? What about Esau's children? Okay. What about Ishmael's children? So couldn't they have been singled out and said, oh, I can do it? Well, maybe not, because the statement is made by God that he's tested things out among other people.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe they weren't ready either. I don't know the answer, but you need to know that this is where everything divides between Judaism and Islam. Okay, at this point. Yes.
I'm sorry, I have to leave. I've got
Okay.
some people, but thank you. See you next week.
Okay, Gail. Be good. Sue is going to be calling you today because there's a delay in transportation and everything.
Okay.
Going to be cutting it very close.
Okay.
Okay. Bye-bye. Anyway, yes, Ruth Ann.
I was just going to say, after 300 years of slavery and everything, isn't it almost a miracle that Moses remembered or knew about the promise that was made to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob?
Yes. So what does that tell you about the Israelites themselves? You've gotten clues all the way. I mean, we in the Moses infant story and you know, then later learning more about his, you know, his birth people, and he learns more about them. There's a lot of time spent with Jethro. Okay. You know, it's all building up. It's all coming together here. So he's saying, okay, I'm someone different. Yes, I am a stranger in a strange land. Okay. So what else? What else? It's an excellent point, Ruthie.
When Moshe is in the burning bush, God tells him that he's the God of Abraham, Yitzhak,
Yes.
and Yaakov.
Yes.
That's perhaps how he knows, but you're right. I mean, how does he know?
But he has to know about that history if God is going, if he's responding to this. So the Israelites probably did practice some modicum of their religion. Okay, even though they were slaves. That's all you can come to that conclusion. And here you're being reminded again
And they
of
did.
that.
And they did. They did
Yes.
because Pharaoh, when he let them go for 3 days, he said, okay, go out and worship your God and have a fast. And he gives them 3 days. And
Yeah.
that's when they escape. So in the past, I never paid attention to the fact that they had some kind of worship system.
That's right. They had to. Be in some way, being in slavery and like that, they may not be able to do it the way they normally would want to, but in some way the stories were passed down. That's another thing we should think about in comparison to today. What are we forgetting about the past? The stories that are passed down from our parents and grandparents and previous generations. Very, very important. So the fact that God now remembers all of this, is there, by the way, there are other stories that dovetail into this that nobody has brought up. The glaring one in my mind is the story of Cain and Abel. Am I my brother's keeper? No answer. We got the answer when we discussed the story of Joseph. Yes, you are your brother's keeper. What do you think's going on in God's mind at this point? Does he remember this? I want to kill someone, but I am my brother's keeper. I am my creation's keeper. I don't know the answer, but it's something to ponder. That's all. Any other comments on where we've been so far? Okay. David, if you would read on verses 15 through 18.
Okay. And Moses turned and went down from the mount with the 2 tables of the testimony in his hand, tables that were written on both their sides, on the one side and on the other were they written. And the tables were the work of God, and the writing was the writing of God, graven upon the tables. And when Joshua heard the noise of the people as they shouted, he said unto Moses, there is a noise of war in the camp. And he said, it is not the voice of them that shout for mastery, neither is it the voice of them that cry for being overcome, but the noise of them that sing do I hear. And it
Okay.
came,
Okay. In your texts, do you see the slash marks
none in mine.
that break up some of the phrases? We've seen some of this before. Miriam's Song of the Sea, the parting of the sea. It's lyric. It's lyrical. Okay. So that's, I just wanted to point that out, but any comments about verses 15 through 18 other than that? David says tables, my book says tablets. Yes, Don.
Just a question, is the detail about the tablets being written on both sides, is that important or is that just thrown in there?
I'm going to take it at face value. It's important.
Interesting. I never noticed that. I never
It's
noticed
very important.
that.
Okay, thanks.
Did you want to comment about that?
No, it's just one of those details. I wonder why it's there, because usually everything has a reason for being there in the Torah.
Well, he
Well,
did.
Don, think about something. Let's say that your book is written, that you hold it, and it's written here, and it's written here as well. So what come to my mind, since I never thought about it, is that when you read to them, you can read yourself. So they can see it, the writing, but you also can see it in there.
There could be, it would be fewer tablets to carry, so.
Yeah, but the point is that the fact that they're written on one side and then the other. So it would be like a page in a book.
Yeah. He didn't have enough space in the front, so he wrote on the back as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, he had to keep them light enough for Moses to carry.
Yes. And
Good point. Good
another
point.
way of looking at it is the 10 Commandments are in bold letters on one side, and all the other information was in the fine print.
The fine print. Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Very good.
It's interesting that
we get too serious sometimes. Anyway, yes, Grace.
Yeah.
And then back to Ruth Ann.
I have a question about the tablets. So it's saying 2 tablets. So they're inscribed on both sides of the tablet. So that's a lot of writing, and it's in God's writing. It's inside.
Yes, perfect.
Carved in there. It's carved in there. So I'm thinking it's maybe 2 pages, but it's 4 sides. So there has to be a lot of written language in these tablets. That's all.
Yeah.
I just
good point. Yeah.
And poor Moses, what he has to remember, what he's been told.
Yeah. It's so heavy. Yeah.
And now he's going to carry this down. Yes, Ruth Ann.
I was going to say, it's interesting. Joshua's the only person out of all these people that saw Moses coming down.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
You know?
Yes.
Because before, Ruth Ann, before we heard about when Moshe goes all the way up, Joshua and Aaron can go a little higher than the rest of the people cannot touch the mountain, but they can go higher. Joshua is like a adopted son to Moshe, and we're going to see him soon enough in another.
Yeah, I know, I understand that, but my point is that, how long could Joshua stay at that spot? I mean, he had to go down to the camp to eat, drink, do whatever. I mean, I'm sure God would not have appreciated his taking care of his bodily functions on the holy mountain.
And what about Moshe? Moshe also had bodily.
Well, up there with God, who knows? That might have all been turned off. But wouldn't the people have really noticed? Joshua, if Joshua had, or Aaron, if they were up there and never came down from wherever they were at.
Yeah.
Interesting take on it. Like it. Yes, Grace.
Good point, Ruth Ann. Thank you for that. I'm just a wild thought in my head. Perhaps Joshua was an intermediary between, Moses and the people. He was keeping watch, like a watcher, to, see what was going on below and to be there to help Moses with those heavy tablets.
Mhm.
Just a thought, I don't know.
Could
I
be.
can't say.
Could be.
Could be.
Joshua happens next time in a very interesting way. There is a war between us and another tribe. And the story goes that when Moshe lifted his hands, we won. And if he put his hands down,
Yes.
we lost.
That's
So
right.
Joshua, and I'm not sure it was Abraham, hold the hands, make Moshe sit, and they hold his hands. So these hands are all the time
Yes.
above, and this is not midrash. This is written.
No, it is in Torah. It is in Torah.
Mhm.
That's right. There's something else here. Look carefully at verse 18. And while you do, I'm just going to comment about Sarah, the incident between Sarah and God. Okay, when God said, I didn't laugh. And God says, but you did laugh. Now look at this structure of verse 18. Okay.
So it's
But this is
lyrical.
Moses answering. Okay.
All of a sudden he can sing. He can't
No,
talk, but
no. Well, but no. He hears for himself,
right.
but he answers. It's not the sound of of a war that's been won or a war that's been lost. It is the sound of song. Okay.
It's written poetically. It's very poetic.
Yes. So I reworded a little bit, but that's basically what it is saying. So now, I did hear this. It is not war. It is something else going on here. And at that point, tune in next week and we will find out what happens to Moses, the people, God, and the golden calf. But no, seriously, this is it's interesting that there are several different stories that are laid out here that become very that you can see are related in some way because of the way it's written, and Rabbi Mary even pointed out the words that link up with the story of Isaac. We're supposed to remember some of these things. And maybe those are the stories that the Israelites were remembering.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. We don't know if it's just Moses, but I think it's the Israelites too. And maybe the family that Moses marries into. Okay. Any other questions? Comments?
Mixed bag of coconuts.
Excuse me? I didn't hear you.
It's a mixed bag of coconuts.
Yes. It's that many times Moses is gone for a long time. We will just and the people just say, oh my, he's lost, and we need to do something, and they build a golden calf, and then everyone gets angry. But why? What else is going on behind the scenes? And there's a lot of empty spaces in the story. And I think, as I've told you before, I think It's the empty spaces that we're asked to fill in with our imagination and come up with different midrash, different drashes on it. Yes, Amy.
My version indicates that there was distress.
Distress, which is, that's, but
Among the people, yeah.
very good. So we can't, so are there any